9:35 now here on AM 1150, 101.7 FM, and WDEL.com. A lot of talk recently about where we are with our economy as we really get into the crux of 2023. And as we do on occasion, talking to Chris Burkhard, Placer Staffing in Newark, about where we stand. First of all, Chris, a good morning to you. Nice to speak to you again.
Hey, Pete, good morning. It's always great to be a guest.
Let's do this. Let's kind of take a look at the last 3 years, the economy, the job market. They've kind of been a story of extremes, Chris, and now it seems we're at a bit of another crossroads. What trends are you seeing right now with the job market?
So, Pete, I think we can have a good discussion here because I have one very surprising insight and then 4 or 5 points of interest. So since February of 2020, small business, defined as companies with less than 250 people, they've created 3.6 million jobs, while large business, those with more than 250 people, have 800,000 less jobs today. So it's fair to say small business is carrying the job market. And then, of course, within that, the job market is incredibly complicated. The labor market added jobs in December and January, lower numbers than we've had in 2 years. And if you read the headlines, some companies are laying off and hiring at the same time. This morning, about 5 minutes ago, unemployment was the lowest it's been since you've had me on as a guest, 183,000 people. So, excuse me, it seems as if tech or real estate is where layoffs have been, but most other companies seem very hesitant to let go of staff because it was so hard to hire. And I think a lot of businesses are anticipating a better second half of 2023.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So many working parts right now to kind of keep people interested and hopefully they stay up to date on what's happening with things at this point. You've talked a lot here, Chris, about how the workforce, those in the workforce, have to manage their own career, right? That's not what companies do. They can't, they won't. If someone right now listening, looking for work, and they know someone inside a company that they want to work in, how do they handle that? What should they do? What's a couple of pieces of advice you might have for them?
Well, you know, it's crazy. There's 11 million jobs posted available, yet employers will give you the impression today that it's not mass hiring, that they're getting more particular, so they're getting kind of more thoughtful in the process. It's not a cattle call.
Yeah.
So this is an incredibly common question because, it seems like it's harder to get jobs today. So I suggest that you send the person a note, an email, perhaps LinkedIn, reminding them how you know one another and that you have a lot of interest in working for that company. And then here's the key, Pete. Ask for a 20-minute coffee clutch. That can be a phone call. That could be in person. But it's an informational exchange where you have a list of questions prepared, where you learn about the company, the leadership, the culture, and any details of what it's like to work there. This isn't selling. It isn't an interview. And I think that's where a lot of people go kind of awry. This is a chance for you to learn, gather information, and a lot of times that's very impressive to people you know, and organizations like to hire referrals. So at some point during this fact-finding, your contact might volunteer to help, speak to a hiring manager or ask the hiring team to review your background or resume a second time. And this is really key, and it could even turn into an interview or a job.
Yeah, it's fantastic advice. And as you're talking, I'm thinking, too, if someone is in the process of putting together a resume, you may find something out in that coffee clutch where you end up tailoring the resume to a more precise place that actually makes you a more favorable candidate. Maybe something in your toolbox you didn't know would be such an application for this job, and yet is. And you put yourself closer to the top of the heap by giving them the information they want to see and read about you.
I've heard many stories of where the person who accepts that interview looks at a resume or hears how someone speaks and gives guidance or counsel. It's usually, it's always truthful, but hey, we use dynamics here, not this. Do you have that experience? Or hey, do you have team building skills or whatever? So you're exactly right. Information is the key that helps tailor who you are to the organization you want to work at.
Yep, that's exactly it. Unemployment rate. I mean, it's this part is kind of a crazy element where it's so low. It's 3.5% still, Chris. A lot of area businesses seeing signs of layoffs, but again, still having a hard time finding and filling jobs. What advice would you have for them?
Well, there's 11 million jobs posted, as I mentioned, but maybe they're not the jobs that folks want.
Yeah.
And that sounds flippant, but I think that's becoming evident. And maybe the hard part of all, there's always been a balance or an equilibrium thing, is I'm not sure that the workforce has the skills for those jobs. And I'm not saying they're underskilled. I'm saying it's a combination of being over and underskilled. There's an imbalance between what employers need and what employees have. So employers still have a tremendous opportunity to have all the employees that they want. Employees are screaming that they want and need flexibility, and they want to see a career path, and they want to learn things. And money and benefits are always very low on those lists of surveys when you ask employees. They really want and need other things. So in some ways, it's a pretty simple equation, but that can be hard. So here's my free Placers consulting advice. Work with any staffing firm. Doesn't have to be Placers. Mm-hmm. We manage careers today. We watch local firms grow and add staff and then shrink and reduce staff. Workers frequently come back to us for their next career move. So we know who's laying off, we hear who's impacted, and we get them back to work fast. So in some ways, companies like mine or others in the industry, we've had to manage careers where companies cannot. And my best advice is if you're a leader in a business and you're having a hard time hiring in your department, consider having a percentage of that department be contingent. No leader wants to lay off, Pete. And if you have 10 or 20% of your department that's freelance or temp, then you have that flexibility and you can change with your demand. And that's what's really businesses are struggling with right now. They can't quite close the gap with staff, but they're kind of afraid to overhire because who wants to be that leader that needs to lay off? That's $1 million of advice, Pete.
It really is. It's great stuff. And frankly, it led into a question I was going to ask. I don't need to, because you just really talked to the role that a staffing agency plays in the things we're laying out this morning. So that's great news. Chris, as always, appreciate it, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Pete.
Chris Burkhard, Placers Staffing in Newark. You can check out myplacers.com if you want to find out more about some of the things Chris alluded to and what his agency might be able to do for you.